Hello, I'm Toycat, and over the last week, a lot of the world has been looking at this map. As you can tell, something big happened this week, and it's led to the United States of America being less united on this one issue. In fact, the states can now have their own view on this very big contentious issue, and so lots of states have decided to go in a very different direction. You'll see, in fact, there's just big regions of the US that have gone a very opposite way to other big regions of the US, and it's so strange to see that neighboring states like Nevada and Utah have such differing views on something that is apparently such a big moral issue that you either feel or you don't feel, depending on how you're going for. And so it's interesting to see because a lot of Americans feel strongly about this, but also a lot of Europeans. In fact, not just Europeans, European leaders have come out and reacted to this directly. As you can see, the Scottish First Minister saying this is one of the darkest days. We've got the British Prime Minister, a big step backwards. Emmanuel Macron says it's a fundamental right. We've even got Belgium. You know, they can't agree on everything, but they can agree that they're very concerned about the implications of this. And so I think it'd be interesting to do a US versus Europe video again, because this is one of those issues where I feel like most Europeans are very crazy mad about what is going on in certain parts of the US, but not even necessarily realizing what's going on our own home turf. Because here's the interesting thing. Here is a map that shows Europe from 0 to 100. 0 is outright banned in every context ever, and 100 would be every single possible thing you could do to make this work is included and is maxed out and is free, covered, etc. And so this is 0 to 100, kind of showing the differences between European countries, and it's so interesting to see that, like, yeah, even neighboring countries have such differing stances. France at 84, Andorra at 0, the UK at 89. You know, Ireland and the UK are so similar culturally speaking, but not when it comes to this one big issue. And so I think it'd be useful to show this map and many other maps that show what is actually responsible behind the big belt over there, to kind of explain what necessarily is going down, and also one of the weird, almost like hypocritical level arguments here, right? Because the US is thought of as being one big country, but really it's 50 individual states. Europe is thought of as being 50 individual countries, and so maybe it's just more okay that Poland's out there being so different to the Czech Republic or Sweden. Maybe it's okay that Liechtenstein's out there being so different to Switzerland because they've got their own sovereignty. They can choose to do that. Or maybe there's something else going on here. So one more thing before we dive into all the fun maps. It's going to be fun, isn't it? I want to just mention that obviously I live in the UK, so my bias on this one, this is a very... lots of people feel strongly about this one, but the way I just feel is like, yeah, it's always been a thing here. It's not... to me, it's never been a particularly, big deal. I don't see it as a life that is going on in there. And even if I did see it as a life, I would be like, well, have you spent time around children? Don't you want to kill them sometimes? And so that's my take as someone from the UK, which is obviously 89. You might feel very differently depending on where on this map you live or where on this map you live, because, yeah, here is the interesting thing. A lot of the United States is very certain that God exists. And this is just showing religiosity. And this is, by the way, just one basically, or the Abrahamic religions, right? But it shows that, like, yeah, there is a very blue belt of the United States. It's called the Bible Belt. And you're going to notice this comes up a lot. Like, okay, yeah, include, West Virginia sometimes, one of the Carolinas sometimes. You're going to notice that the same block has a lot of things that come up together. Then compare that map to Europe and see, like, oh, yeah, so Europe is very yellow, which is 10 to 29%, whereas America is very purple and blue, which is 50 to 82%. It literally could not be more different, despite all being Europeans. I guess you had to be religious to immigrate, and yeah, something about the United States keeps people religious now. Who knows what that is? You can see that the only parts of Europe that really come close are like a few of the Balkans, and then Armenia, and there's also Azerbaijan just up there. They apparently also feel very strongly that God exists. By the way, what is this map? Why does it include Armenia and Azerbaijan, but not Iceland or any of the micro countries or Luxembourg? I mean, okay, that's not Luxembourg. Anyway, so with that said, this map is going to be one of the correlations you're going to see time and time again. But also you're going to see that, like, this leads to a lot of good effects too. I mean, apparently the laws they passed from being so, pro, the man in the sky, the things that they passed in relation to that also means that a lot fewer people drink there. And, alcohol is just a poison, right? As someone who drinks alcohol, it's a poison. And so, it's just a very slow poison. And so, like, yeah, it's very interesting that, like, okay, yeah, this same region of the US also then has pretty low alcohol levels, 5 liters or so in some of the states over here, whereas most of Europe, which feels very opposite, is just like, yeah, what are you going to do? You're not going to go to church on a Sunday, you're going to drink instead. Which one is more damaging is maybe an interesting, this comment section's going to suck anyway, go crazy in there. You might as well, let's light the thing on fire. Like what's a better use of your time, going to church or drinking some alcohol? Let me know in the comments down below. This is going to get demonetized so quickly. But here's the interesting thing that I don't fully understand is why this region of the US, which again, everyone, when they're talking about this issue, they say the reason it's all together is because of this thing right here. And that these things all correlate together, like less alcohol and, fewer access to this big thing. But like this is something people say correlate together. But then how does this explain that this is also the homicide capital of the Western European world, right? Like it's very interesting to look at and say that like, yeah, this is very concerning. Louisiana at 10 murders per 100,000 people, intentional homicides per 100,000 people. What the heck is going on there? Like, it's not that they're drunk. I can tell you that's the case. What are they doing to be going so crazy? Whereas in most European countries, it's down a lot. I don't know what is going on there to make this so ludicrously high, but you can see that, I don't know, here's a fun one. I live in the UK right now, which across all jurisdictions here is like the 10th lowest, right? And I'm about to move to what might be I think it's about the 10th highest. So I'll let you know if I see 6 times more murders from my little move going on here. But yeah, it's very, very fascinating to me that this happens between the US and the EU. Also interesting to me is that this little area of the US that has the high murder rates, as well as the high religiosity, as well as they also have high diabetes rates. And it's like there's no correlation between religiosity and diabetes, right? Unless you're thinking to yourself like, well, I'll eat what I want and God will find a way. I don't think that's happening. I think there is a huge glut in the diabetes happening here. Side note, you can basically spot a lot of the reservations out west from the, because Native Americans have a particularly huge issue when it comes to diabetes, maybe, or maybe you could say it's not the Native Americans, it's the something culture, but whatever. You can see that there's a big issue in those parts of the country, but like still, it's like, this is excluding the weird outliers, and they do exist. I mean, a lot of Californians quite high in there. Puerto Rico is absurdly high. You can't see it because my chair's in the way. But Puerto Rico over here, okay, there you go. Puerto Rico, it's sitting there all in red. The entire country is the darkest red, but the same is true for Alabama and Mississippi, and, I think wrong way around, and Louisiana and Arkansas. So what's the deal with that, huh? Besides this one area. I'm guessing that's Huntsville in Alabama, right? Let me go confirm on a map if that one part that isn't, no, it's Birmingham, right? Or is it? You know what, let me go confirm. Okay, I don't know my, we got a new one. Anyway, so, no, I think that is Birmingham. For whatever reason, Birmingham is not very diabetes filled. That's kind of nice. So yeah, if you move to Alabama and you don't want to have yourself a little bit of diabetes going in your life, move to Birmingham, apparently. Anyway, so as you can see, that's interesting because way up here in the northeast of the country, where the god is less real and your access to things is higher, it seems as though you get less diabetes. Maybe there's a direct one-to-one correlation between. Anyway, so with that said, the other interesting thing that really highlights this for me is that poverty is especially bad here. In fact, this is probably the thing that lines up with diabetes quite well, right? Is like, so the Bible, the religiosity area is highly correlated with poverty, and both those things together seem to correlate with diabetes. And for some reason, all of that together correlates with murder. When you're poor and when you're religious, you murder people. Surely those things should cancel out. Or maybe it's the when you're poor, you murder people, and being religious is like a response to that, having like a moral, fix on that. I'm not sure. It's hard to like take these things all together, but it's interesting to see the poverty map of the US, where it's heavily concentrated, and then there's like big white areas. And it's the same thing in Europe, though, where like, yeah, there's some regions of each country that are doing not so great. It's actually, by the way, this is a map of 20% or above, so anything that is this or above would be the same purple on that map. This is just a more in-depth map. You can see like, okay, so, the same regions as like a lot of Romania and Bulgaria and Greece and all of southern Italy. Jesus, southern Italy. I always forget just how poor it's doing down there. And then we got like southern Spain and the same thing. We got like, okay, yeah, looking at this map, very, very concerning. There's no way that really less than 10% of the whole UK is not at risk of poverty? That can't be factual. The whole of Poland, the whole of France, that's got to be like a no data thing, right? Because is Turkey really doing that well? Whatever. Anyway, with that said, interesting map to look at, right? But the final thing I wanted to kind of bring this all together with is that because we use road deaths too. It's like even a car, even just driving somewhere, is significantly more dangerous in this one region of the United States. The one that I feel like everyone's really complaining about when they're saying those states with their own laws. Those same states have huge road deaths. I'm sorry. Those same states have huge road death comparisons. Although you could argue this map is kind of unfair, just showing the scale of like, wow, Europe is so much better at driving than America, although it includes car, motorcycle, bus, and bicycle accidents, as well as passengers and pedestrians. But if you actually look at it from a world basis, it's like, well, the Europe just seems to do especially good. The US is doing quite well compared to developing countries, which maybe isn't the best of metrics. Like, yeah, the US not fully developing right now, but it is very interesting because the actual trend, in my opinion, is obviously it lines up with this. Which way round does it go? There's a fun level of like, well, does that affect how things are now? Should we focus on this more, or should we focus on the fact that it's resolved this? But obviously, this is the actual big difference between the two places, and so that's where I wanted to kind of, like bring today's point in. It's like there is a big region of the US which has this big scar that comes from this big one time, but those people, it's not like it's like, oh yeah, and their colonial overmasters are forcing them to be this. It's like, no, those are then the people who very strongly believe in God. Those are the same people who use that belief in God to vote for policies. These states aren't autocracies. They are democratic states. They have elections. Those same people are voting for this thing. And so, like, what do you really do about that? Do you say, oh yeah, well, these people who historically 150 years ago had their rights taken away from them, didn't have the ability to vote. They were 3/5 of a person for apportionment and all of these various things. You know what we should do to fix the damage that is being dealt from that? The damage that has done, the scar that has left? What if we said that actually now we don't agree with your ability to decide in your own democracy? That's the weird thing that I kind of get from this. Because here is my take. Even as someone who comes from, again, very, I think the American word is liberal. But like very, very liberal in the sense of very liberal towards this issue. Like whatever, go do it if you really want to do it. Is the stance that my country takes on this. And that's my internalized bias on this one that I'm never going to be able to fully get rid of. But my take is still like, yeah, looking at this map of Europe, of course every European country has different views. I don't agree with the views of some countries going on in Europe, and I'm sure the people in those countries look at my country and go, what the heck are you doing there? Why are you, something murder? And so it's very interesting to see that, like, America feels like, no, on this issue, it should be all the same. And in fact, this is the weird, almost like hypocrisy of the argument of federalization versus not, right? So the United Kingdom, you might know, is divided up into 4 countries. Maybe you didn't know that, maybe you do. And so Scotland, you might know, it feels very strongly that it shouldn't be having its decisions made by the rest of the UK. It should make all of its decisions locally, which to me feels like a direct contradiction to the statement of like, yeah, I think that this is messed up, and I don't like that this is no longer federally guaranteed. The opinion, even when it sucks for you, should be, yeah, I think that greater federalization is better, even when it leads to awful things from my personal views, even if it leads to potentially emboldening people, yeah, people should be allowed to make their own decisions. Instead saying, actually, no, things should be decided centrally as possible, which is in direct contradiction with wanting independence, or wanting an independent world where you make more of your own policies, to my view. I mean, the same thing could be said for lots of other places, I think it's fair to say, but like, this is where everyone falls down. I'm not trying to criticize Nicola Sturgeon, the first Minister of Scotland. I'm trying to criticize that everyone feels like, yeah, there's this weird line where we say that everyone is allowed to pick for themselves, but then we're going to pick some things where they can't, because you can't choose to genocide. That's, every country is allowed its own democracy, but not genocide. That's where we step in. Also on that level is like, yeah, well, you're allowed to vote for your own stuff, except if you vote red on this one, sorry to tell you, you don't get to have your own take. And it's, I don't know, like, to me it seems as though, because the majority of people in America do agree with this, if you want that, everyone votes for it on the levels where you know, I don't know. I've got this interesting take of why is it that people in the United States have to view people living in every other part of the United States as exactly like them, as you know, like I think it's very counterintuitive. If you look at Europe, right, this is the size of the US laid over onto Europe, or North America, we could say, and it's like, what if you live in Portugal? Does the policy that Greece or Turkey, or, you know, the direct comparison, if you live in Portugal, you live in Oregon. If you live in Libya, you live in Texas. Like, if you live in Portugal, are you concerned about the day-to-day lives of people living in Libya? Or even a better comparison is just Romania or Bulgaria or Poland, right? Like, do you need to be? Or can you say, yeah, I don't agree with it, but those people got to live their lives? I think, you know, again, this is an issue I have strong personal views about, but I still take the view, even on something where I'm pretty strongly believed is like, it sucks, but like, why can't you let other people decide on themselves? And this is, I guess, the level of like, well, actually, these rules are saying that people can't decide. It's a rule against women or whatever else. But it's like, well, if the majority of people in a jurisdiction decide dumb things, as we have done for a lot of the last few years, I guess you have to go with it. And that sucks a lot of the time, but isn't that kind of the basis of representative democracy? It represents the people. The people make bad economic decisions all the time. I mean, not only on a collective level, but on a, you know, like, people make bad economic decisions. People are gonna make bad decisions about, you know, a new category of politics, like reaction to outbreaks around the world is a political thing. People are gonna make terrible decisions about this. But isn't that the point? You should have some powers reserved away that people don't get to change. But the answer, I guess the question is, should this be one of them? Because, I don't know. It's very strange. Let me know your thoughts. Give me a 6-paragraph response about how you feel about this particular issue. Also, if you want to read this thing, it's called the... It's called the Abort Atlas. It's a really handy thing. They put together like all the different things about like, okay, so how does a country score based on all these interesting things. Information about family planning is included in there too. And yeah, I think it's very interesting. I also think it's interesting that like so much of the world does base its voting on its religiosity. Like to me, you know, as someone who has like, I don't know, philosophical views about what happens when I die, I don't vote based on those usually. But maybe I should stop. Maybe that's what I should do. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it interesting. Because I'll see you in the next one. Unless I don't. I'm going to go to the airport now. So, I don't know. Enjoy your evening. And I'll enjoy my time in, I don't know, the part of America where everything's legal apparently. Like, everything is legal in Nevada. Speaking of everything being legal in Nevada, you know what isn't legal in Nevada? Saying second channel, don't care, and saying wait, if you agree with me, go to patreon.com/toycat and give me money that I will use to buy some kebab. There aren't really kebabs in America. You know, is there kebabs in America? Let's find out. Can I get a kebab in Las Vegas? Kebab. Doner kebab. Okay, so I've actually seen this place. This place sucks. Oh, Google disagrees with me. You've got bad opinions, Google reviews. You've just never tried a good kebab before. We've got Nevada kebab. We've got kebab corner. That's kebab. That's not kebab. We got flame kebab over here. We got Persian eatery. Ooh, we got lots of choices for kebabs. Honestly, you know, I like that there's a lot of people from all around the world that you can even get a kebab here. Wait, there's a on the strip. There's a kebab place. Oh, I've seen that. Do you think the kebabs are good? Let's look at pictures. Yeah, you know. Let's detox from the very controversial. You know, like, no one wants to have discussions about that. No one's changing their mind. No one's like, oh, Toycat, you know what? You made a good point when you said that you would like to kill babies. Yeah, I have been around them, and I guess I do want them to die. No one's gonna say something like that. So let's look at pictures of. This isn't kebab, really. This is like a kebab bowl. It's not like this isn't a thing that exists. It's just, is this a kebab? What do you reckon, Internet? Is this what I should spend the Patreon money on? Or do you reckon this is, I've got to hold out for real good kebabs? What do you reckon? How do you feel? Speaking of things that you feel, I feel like this video's over. Second channel, don't care. Goodbye. I'm going to be late for my flight if I don't go soon.